Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rolling Credits. We are back. We got a full squad tonight. We got Gums, Kirby, and Pat, and of course me, Seth. Welcome back, everybody. How you guys doing? You guys feeling good?
Feeling
I'm
good?
feeling great.
Another great episode of The Last of Us.
That
Happy
was so
Super
good.
Bowl week.
Super Bowl week.
Got The Last of Us episode 4. Before we get into the episode, just want to shout out, this is spoiler filled. So, if you haven't seen, episode 4 and you don't want anything spoiled, make sure you skip this, come back later. Or if you want to get spoiled, stay tuned. And then also make sure you guys are following our Instagram and our Discord pages. You can find us on rolling_credits_podcast on Instagram. And there at the top in the bio, you're going to find a link tree where you can follow our Discord, different pages, things like that. And that's where we're going to be doing giveaways, stream nights, trivia, all kinds of fun things. So make sure you guys tune in for that. So let's talk about The Last of Us, because this show just keeps getting better and better. And the first thing I wanted to bring up is, obviously, we got some more changes from the game this week. The hunters in the game, now they have a face. They didn't really have a face. It was kind of like just an enemy that Joel and Ellie came up against. And this, you got Melanie Linsky's Kathleen. And if you watch the inside the episode, they said the reason that they kind of gave it a face and give it, more of a background is because they wanted to humanize the people that Joel and Ellie face. This doesn't go really with, the tone of the first game. It's more so something in the second game that they face. But what do you guys think of this change? Is this something that was warranted, or do you like it? And I'm going to start with you, Gums.
Yeah, so I think this was a great thing to do because it's just going to add a little bit more meat to the bones and fleshing out of this, society and what the world looks like now. So we're going to enter this arc, so to speak, I feel like, right? We're going to enter this arc where we learn a little bit more about these people, what happened. And I think giving any bad guy a face is always great because it allows you to hate them or to love them or to understand them. So this was just one of those things that I think needed to be done. There's probably happened a few more times, and we talked about this last episode where, when you change a few things from the game, make it impactful. I think this is be very impactful, right? So we can put some actors in there that can act their butts off and really give us some quality new information and world building. So,
Yeah, Kirby, what do you think?
I liked it. And I liked it for the same reason why I liked episode 3. Because you took, a character or a group of people from the game that didn't really have a whole lot of backstory. They were just kind of there to propel, the main story forward. And you gave them like this really rich backstory. And I think that's something that we're going to see with the hunters now. It adds more depth to the overall world. And that's something that I'm a big sucker for. So it came off to me in a very positive way. And looking at the hunters themselves, they kind of rose up against Fedra and they overthrew them, but they became the exact thing that they were kind of fighting against, which is something that, I don't know, can be exploited in the show, or we'll see how it plays out in the next episode. But it was definitely a cool change, and it really shows kind of the ugly side of the survivors of this whole thing.
Yeah, I want to kind of just double down too on some of Kirby's points here, because we've talked now the past 3 weeks straight now as we review these episodes about some of the changes that they've made from the video game and the reason behind them. And a big theme that we've seen is they're taking content that existed in the video game that was just kind of these minor points, but they had to exist because as a video game player, it kept you engaged. And they were some things that we knew that those video game players were going to have to see on screen. But if you did them 1-to-1, it doesn't translate the same. It would just be a useless narrative piece that wouldn't really matter. So you take the things that Gum says, and it's like, well, you need to give that certain enemy that they're facing a purpose, a reason. Maybe you identify with them, maybe you don't. Maybe you hate them, maybe you love them. Maybe they're the people that just you identify with more. So this is another one of those things where they're taking pieces of content, like Kirby said, that maybe just wasn't as it was very memorable in the game, but it wasn't crucial to the progression of, say, the two main characters in the game. And they changed it now in a way that allowed the audience to identify with those characters that just made way more sense. So I think it was a good change, and I really like the way that they did it.
Yeah, that's nice.
I have to agree with all of you guys. You guys all pretty much nailed it on the head. And I think, too, it's going to tie into more so with, like, Sam and Henry showing up as well. I think that is going to have more effect because you don't really know why they showed up in the game. Like, they kind of were just there. And this, it seems like from the show, at least, it sounds like Kathleen is hunting Henry because Henry might have killed her brother. So it kind of gives that, like, the reason for them being there. So I think it was a good thing. And I think all of the changes, honestly, that they've made have made the game story better. Like, it's worked so well, and it's just been so awesome to just see it unfold.
Yeah, it's always fun to see a company kind of, like, toe the line of, like, is this a good change or not? But they're always kind of on the good side of it. So it's a refreshing change, I think, from a lot of adaptations that we've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and it's action-oriented and based. Like,
yeah.
Again, we talk about fillers and how bad fillers can be, where they just really don't lead anywhere and they don't build on anything, and it's just like kind of fan service. Mm-hmm. This is like gonna bring story. Action in, right? It's gonna world build, and even if it is quote unquote fan service because these guys weren't that important, they're just like an objective. I think that bringing that action, intensity, the drama, even the humor we get at the end, right? Like some of those things. I mean, they're literally world building through these little experiences to get to the bigger arcs that are going to hit us in the mouth. And I think that that's the way you should do it. And I was just wanted to point that out, that they're really taking their time to just do this in a different way and give us like something that drives us forward while giving us filler. So I just wanted to reiterate.
They're already hitting us in the feels, that last episode 3 was rough.
Yeah. That's for sure.
And nobody's prepared for what happens next. We know what's going to happen, but kind of what you just said, the fun interactions towards the end, Gums, that kind of brings me to the next point that I wanted to talk about. So with all of the fun interactions that we've had between Joel and Ellie, and, is there one thing from the game that you guys wanted to see get pulled in? We got the magazine scene, which I thought they played that off perfectly. And honestly, I thought it was better because the way that Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are working off each other, I think is fantastic. So I'm going to start with myself here on this one. This isn't really like a funny scene, but I really want to see them do like the water scene, when like Joel has to get like a piece of like wood to bring over to Ellie and then have Ellie jump onto that wood to get to the other side because she can't swim. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think that just like little things that they've kind of hinted at, I do kind of want to just see like those interactions, mainly more like kind of the crafting system a little bit of like how they're like, because like they kind of teetered it at the beginning of the last episode where Ellie was kind of in the basement and she finds the tampons kind of on the shelf in there and she puts it in her pack, and like that's like a core function of the game, right? There's like you're just like kind of finding random shit to like make stuff that helps you on your journey. I would kind of like to see them like kind of create those interactions in and of itself. I will say, just even not from the game though, like as this this past episode, my favorite interactions was the dad jokes by a long shot, right? Like those were hilarious. That was funny. Like, and I think that, no matter how you and then seeing kind of that progression of their overall relationship, I think was really fun to see.
Gums.
So, I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards what Pat there said is not so much the craft system, but I would like to see the scarcity in this world be played more dramatically. Okay. So I guess just saying like they need to be doing that stuff and finding and looking and grinding and like trying to put stuff together to create stuff. But more so importantly, I want to see the impact of not having enough bullets. I want to see the impact of having not enough food. Like I want to see Joel get pissed because he's hungry. I want to see them like shoot 2 things and miss, and they get mad that they miss because they're running out of ammo. Like I just want that scarcity and that flair to be there because it's going to make them act in a different way. And I think it should make everybody. So one of the big hits on this episode was, why wreck a perfectly good truck? Why did they spike strip it, drop a cinder block on it, and like, you know what I mean? Like crash it into this thing when, I mean, spike strip makes sense. You can replace the tires, but you're talking about 20 years later where cars probably don't work or there's not enough mechanics there to get them to work. And you're wrecking a beautiful vehicle that could get you far. Like, you know, that type of stuff for me, like I want to make sure the scarcity feels scarce. Like
You want it to be
I want them to,
authentic.
I want them to shoot the people, not the car, because they care about the car more than the people, right? So, anyways, that's what I'd like from the game to be in there is that things they share with like Resident Evil and Last of Us is the scarcity.
You know, I do kind of want to interject here and say I had the exact same thought when that truck crashed and Joel gets out and he's got the long rifle in his hand. And my first thought that came to my head was I remember being in this scene and having like 4 bullets and like, and being pissed off that I was like, if I miss one shot, I don't got it. And I'm probably gonna have to redo this scene. So I do definitely understand that idea of like, you know, having a little bit more of a feel for the rarity of the things that they're using and like understanding that each little piece that goes into it matters. I definitely understand that take.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, to that point, one thing that I think that they did very well was when they're getting gas and, you know, Ellie asks like, are we going to be doing this every hour? And he's like, you know, well, gas is pretty much water at this point. So we have to constantly refill. So they're kind of towing that line. They're really kind of showing a little bit of that scarcity. But for me, when I, you know, looked at this question, I didn't so much think of like mechanics, like game mechanics that I'd like to see in the show. I was thinking of specific like situations and specific scenes. So to me, the thing that I really want to see happen, which we might see next episode, is when Sam gets infected and turns, and Henry has to kill him, and then Henry kills himself. Like that's going to be such a rough scene. So I'm hoping they really bring that into the show because that's going to be very impactful.
I was worried that they wouldn't, but after seeing the first episode and them actually killing Joel's daughter, I have a feeling they're going to do it, which actually brings me to the next topic that I wanted to discuss. So, you know, I guess I was going to say without, you know, getting into spoilers here, but we kind of already hit the nail on the head. So we actually are introduced to Sam and Henry, the brothers from the game. And if you've played the game, you know what happens. If you haven't, you're going to find out pretty damn quick.
Sorry about it.
So, you know, in the show, Sam is actually deaf, and he's deaf in real life, which wasn't the case in the game. It's a departure from the game as well. Do you guys think that this is going to add more of an emotional layer to his character and kind of how Joel and Ellie and all of them communicate with each other? Because I thought that was kind of a little interesting bit, and we'll start here with you, Pat.
Yeah, I saw this too in kind of like the looking at the next episode thing, right? And you kind of started to see, you know, Henry signing to Sam, and that was kind of like a something we saw that was going to be coming in the next episode. And I did kind of see this, and I thought it was definitely an interesting choice. But I think that it's as we kind of go back to question 1, and you talk about what Kathleen's kind of arc is going to be. We kind of talk about how she's hunting for Henry because we're pretty sure that he's the reason that her brother is now dead. I think we're going to see that, you know, he sold out her brother to Hydra because they were threatening to kill Sam in some way, or he was getting a hold of, you know, some kind of resources that was benefiting his life. I think we're going to kind of start to go down that path a little bit and figure on that. And I think it's going to add that emotional layer of now that interaction, because that character is deaf, it might actually kind of give even bigger scope. It might give us more reason to understand why Kathleen is angry for the things that she's angry about. And it's going to give us a little more backstory into why Henry is making the decisions that he's making, and definitely make the end result much more difficult, I think, for the viewer, because you're going to be very now involved in both of these characters, kind of similar like we were talking about in the other question, where maybe you wouldn't have been in the game in and of itself, like as in a different light, we'll say.
Yeah.
Curbs.
Yeah, I think adding that aspect is really going to, it's really going to add more to it, I think, in terms of just pulling on the heartstrings pretty much, because you look at things like, especially when it comes to kids with like disabilities and stuff like that. You kind of feel it right here. So everything that they're going to be going through, I think, is just going to be amplified, just due to that fact, that it's going to be, more difficult to communicate. And I don't know, that could make, the scene that I just previously spoiled for everybody. I think that might make it so much worse. So we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and put a little spoiler warning in between.
Yeah,
Clip one in,
I'll put it
be
on the
like,
screen just
"Listen,
like spoiler
if you
incoming."
didn't play the game, skip to 344.
He
right.
basically told you the next 2 episodes in this episode. So that's interesting.
I also, I agree with everything you guys have said. And after watching, episode 3 was such a departure from the game, and how they are like crafting the story and really hitting us in the feels. I think that, just not even the fact that Sam's deaf, I think it just, that whole scenario and that whole situation is just going to hit twice as hard. I do think it does add more emotional layers, and kind of like what Pat was saying, how it leads into Kathleen and things like that. But I think overall the show's just done such a good job of portraying these characters' emotions and really hitting us hard. So I think this next episode's going to be absolutely just gut-wrenching.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Gums?
Yeah, so I kind of like the question of, in the show, Sam is actually deaf, which is a departure from the game. Do you think it's going to add more emotional layers to his character? I don't know about emotional, but I do understand sensory. So I think that this is going to add another element of sensory development, or like a sensory layer. So what I mean by that is, because he's deaf, we're probably going to be in situations where these creatures can hear. And we're going to need Sam to be doing these things, or he can feel the vibrations, kind of how the plants can, or, you know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they're going to use that aspect of sensory deprivation on us, or maybe we have an episode where it's silent for the first 20 minutes or in large parts, and we kind of get that, whatever that movie, I forget the name
Quiet
of the
Place.
movie that,
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place, right? So just like how that happened, that type of stuff is what I'm hoping for when we introduce it. If not, that's totally okay. But him being deaf, I don't think it's going to add like any extra additional emotional layers to it or anything. I think he's a kid, so it's like, if anything happens to a kid or it happens to a brother's, right, it's going to be emotional no matter what. But if we can get some of that sensory stuff going, where he's, telling him to be quiet, and then you've seen that big crater this episode, or that rumbling, what's next, obviously, so I think if we can get more of that sensory out of the episode, that would be insanely fun, right?
Yeah, that'd be a cool perspective to have.
So kind of similarly to like when they first met the clickers, like back in, was that the second episode? When there's like, you kind of have to be super quiet and the only thing you hear is the clicker, like adding like that sensory level. I definitely agree with that. Just being like things where it's like every sound matters.
It's going to create more tension. It's going to be super like tense watching them. And especially like we got the reveal in the teaser that the bloater is coming finally in this episode.
Yeah,
so,
I did see that in the inside the episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be awesome.
What if Sam's getting in trouble because he's not able to hear these things, right? You know what I mean? Like these are things that I hope they play on our senses. So
Yeah. I'm excited.
I hope Sam survives and he gets away with all of them, and it changes the story completely. He's the third wheel in this.
He's the new protagonist. Fuck Joel and Ellie.
Ellie, whatever.
They were actually killed by the bloater.
Yeah.
So, last thing I wanted to touch on here, we finally get to see Ellie use the gun that she picked up from Bill's house, and has been asking for this entire series. The entire scene obviously takes a heavy toll, both just not on Joel, but Ellie as well, for the rest of the episode. And, I want to see, how do you guys feel that this was portrayed, the scene, and, potentially foreshadowing, the future for these characters and what's to come for them. And I'm going to start with you first, Kirby.
I think they played it off really well. It really kind of it showed Ellie the reality, of the world around her, because she's been saying this whole time, like, hey, can I get a gun? Like, give me a gun, let me have a gun. And then she's put into a situation where she finally has to use it, and we see her shoot the guy that was attacking Joel, and like it takes her a minute to get up the courage to shoot, and then when she finally does and the guy's on the ground like just like begging for his life, she's just kind of backing off, and you can kind of see the tears start to come up. Like that really fucked her up. So I think that, you know, the way that they played it, she got the gun that she wanted, she had to use it, and I think that she's going to regret it, and she's probably going to think twice about using it in the future, I think. But the way that, you know, the two actors, the way that Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal really portrayed that was very good. I think you can see just the emotion, like the emotional toll that it took on them, just throughout the whole episode, pretty much.
Yeah, they work so well together. Gums, what do you think?
Yeah, so I really like this question, and a heavy toll. It's an interesting phrasing, and I say that because, like, I don't know if the toll was heavy, other than the secret of discovery that was lifted from their chest was heavy, right? So I'll try to describe this. So for Joel's perspective, you got to see him be violent. You didn't, well, obviously we didn't see him kill him, but you know what happened. From her perspective, she paralyzed somebody. She didn't kill him. She didn't aim to kill him. She just aimed to hurt him. But then, you know, she ended up paralyzing him, and then Joel killed him. And so when she told us, hey, you know, I've done that before. And I think it was like a release for her to get that off her chest, to let Joel know, like, hey, I've done this before. I haven't talked to anybody about this. And Joel's like, hey, I've done this before. Like, this really sucks, and I'm sorry you have to go through this, but this is what it is, and I'm here for you. Like, it was more of a release for me rather than like the toll it's taking on them. It's more of so them being able to release to each other about this crap that they have to deal with, and then grow from there. They're almost like the same little people. You know, she's going to be as vicious as him, if not more vicious, as she gets older, because she's already doing the things he's doing as an adult, as a kid. So that's kind of my perspective on it. Again, not so much that it's a toll, but more so it's a release for them to say, hey, I'm glad I had somebody here so I could tell my secrets to, show them what happened. And yeah, we did it, but we know we had to. And I think that's my aspect for it.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys, and I think one thing that I wanted to ask, though, real quick, because I remember in the game, she actually kills the person, whereas in the show, she doesn't. Joel ends up, finishing the job, where I think that in the game, it kind of moves her character along a little further than the show does, but I get the, where we didn't get in the show or in the game, the person she shot, like saying, my mom's going to be worried, things like that, basically like pleading his case. So I think adding that aspect into it, and even though she shot him and didn't finish the job, I think that's still going to really hit her, and it's going to kind of carry on into further episodes. And I think too, one thing with this is that, I think it kind of just like makes her aware of the situation that she's actually in, because, we've seen her asking like, oh, what is this plane? What is this? What is that? She isn't really like aware of her surroundings and like what this world truly is outside of the, the quarantine zone. So this is like her first step into that realness of what she's actually going to have to do to survive out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that too. It's a different take on it, but it definitely showcases the reality of what's happening. Yeah. And I think for me, what was big on this scene and the scenes that kind of came from that is that prior to that exact moment, we saw a lot of what, the interaction between Ellie and Joel, even though there was like kind of those like little sparks of like them kind of becoming more of a team in the early parts of the episode, Joel says flat out that she's still cargo. Like it's still, there's still no real connection there in terms of past that. There's little bits and pieces, but not much. After that scene, and after they're able to kind of talk about a little bit of kind of what's happened. Hey, sorry I put you in that spot. Hey, it's not my first time doing this. And then, you have the scene at the very end when they're kind of talking about it a little bit more and they're peeling that onion back. That's the first real shattering of the wall of like, okay, the dynamic now has changed between Joel and Ellie. It is now a different type of relationship. Joel is now teaching her how to use the gun, how to hold it properly, what she's doing for it. And a lot of it kind of stems from prior to that. Joel really only kind of saw Ellie in this light of, hey, look, I'm been about it. I've done some fucked up shit. You're just kind of talking like you think you have this big game, but you don't really know what's happening here. And then now Ellie is now starting to see, hey, he might be kind of right. And Joel is also kind of starting to see in Ellie that, you know, maybe this also isn't her first rodeo. So there's like now this like two-way trust that's happening at a character level that I think is just going to do wonders for now being able to look forward into what is going to be the interactions between these two characters for the next like 6 episodes. Like it truly is going to be something that now we are going to see them more as friends and as teams. And it's just a deeper layer that they're adding to the show.
It almost feels like that old synopsis of honor amongst thieves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're trusting each other as thieves would or as pirates would.
Yeah.
You know, like we've got to have each other's back and we got to use each other to get to where we need to be.
They both might not be the best people, but you know, we got to be able to do this as a group. It is what it is.
Do what we do.
Yeah.
We're starting to really get into the brunt of the story now. So, you know, these next few episodes are really going to hit hard and they're going to hit fast. You know, and on that note, until next week's episode, Gums, send us off.
Did you guys know that diarrhea is genetic? It's in your genes. Let's keep it rolling.